All right, I think we are live. We are indeed live. Here we are in the spoiler room. It is the last episode of our Kidman in 4K. Thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, grabbing your favorite drink, and talking movie spoilers with us. As tonight, we're going backwards. Yes, Nicole Kidman films we've been looking at across 4 different decades. That's the 4D in the Kidman 4D special. We looked at 2013 Stoker. We looked at 2003 Dogville. We looked at 1993 Malice, but we're going way, way, way back to 1983 film BMX Bandits. Yes. And tonight, joining me once again is the man who keeps coming back for more, none other than our good friend Ian Simmons. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing great, Mark. This movie we're going to talk about underscores one of the many reasons I love this show, because I think I'd heard of BMX Bandits, but I'm like, it's a bike racing movie. I don't give a crap. But like, this movie is so much more than that. It is so wonderful. I can't believe Nicole Kidman was 16 when she made it. True fact. We are almost exactly 10 years apart in age. Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
but
right.
at
Yeah.
16, she looked like she was 23. It's so
she
strange.
did. She was very tall, even at 16. I'm like, wow, she's like taller than almost all the cast in this film.
But yeah, I'm gonna give it all away. I love BMX Bandits.
Oh, there you go. Well, you can give the synopsis. Give the synopsis for BMX Bandits.
I'll see if I can. There's a small town in Australia called Manly. And there's this group of I'm a little confused on the dynamics here. These two best friends who are way into BMX racing, and then they find this girl named Judy,
Yeah.
who's also Natalie Wood's character's name in Rebel Without a Cause, which we talked about. What is going on with these coincidences? But the three of them kind of form this trio friendship / semi, I guess, kind of love triangle.
Yeah.
And they like racing their bikes around, but they get mixed up with this gang of like nasty criminals who are planning to pull off this like money truck heist using special frequency walkie-talkies that they can use to interact with each other, but the police, they can tap into police frequencies, but they're untraceable back to them or something. And there's like this whole box full of these walkie-talkies. The BMX Bandits, as they call themselves, they come across this cache of walkie-talkies, and they go and they start selling them all over the neighborhood. So like construction workers, teachers, their friends, like everyone's got these things. And then you've got the criminals who are trying to get it back so they can do this heist without the big boss finding out, because it's like their big chance for a huge score. They're saying like $250,000 each back in 1983. Wow.
Yeah, it came to like $5 million, I think I figured, or $4 million, like, because the boss man, would take the biggest cut, but for each of them, there was 5 of them, then that's 250,000 each. So I mean, yeah, it was $1.5 million. So there was at least $2 or $3 million in 83.
But this movie it's called BMX Bandits, and the opening, you get some bike stunts, the kind of setup with the characters involved, the bikes, but it really doesn't become about that until like the last like maybe 25 minutes, when there's like this extended chase to these different locations, and you have the hundreds of the town of Manly. I actually wrote this down, and apparently the whole town is comprised of 10 crooks, 6 police officers, and 300 kids obsessed with BMX racing.
There were a lot of kids driving BMX bikes at the end of this film.
Because for most of the movie, you just see our 3 protagonists with their BMX gear, like the headgear and the brightly colored outfits and those awesome bikes, and you're like, is there enough of an industry in this town to support this? And you find out, yes, there is.
There is. Oh yeah, this was my first watching too. I had heard of it, and I adored this film. I'm just watching this going, it does scream 80s. I mean, it is completely 80s. But at the other hand, you're just watching this going, this actually is a film. It's not just like a bit of a gimmick or whatever, or like you got some kid friendly, comedies or whatnot. This is an actual film. These are our three protagonists are actual characters, our villains even, not necessarily depth, but still it was like, wow. And you're right. This is one of the most wild and longest consistent chase scenes I've seen in a film, any film, adult or otherwise, that we get in this movie when the crooks try to catch up to our three heroes.
And they go through different, locations, or like an airplane hangar and a construction site. And this is all the thing I kept coming back to is
Mhm.
this is basically a kids movie, but
Mhm.
it's almost like, what if, and I know George Miller has directed kids movies, but like, what if the guy who made Mad Max decided to make a BMX movie for children? This is exactly what it is, down to some of the great stunts, even just like the little gags of,
Mhm.
a house getting, torn apart, or a beam being dropped on a car, and explosions and stuff falling over. I mean, it's so elaborate and cool that I still don't know how they got these cameras mounted to some of these bikes to get these like crazy POVs, or like the car chases and stuff, because these are like bigger cameras back then. um but the thing that really struck out about it is the whole tone of the movie is almost like the opening of Richard Donner's Superman 2, or the town scenes in Dead Alive before the zombies showed up. It's like this quirky, charming town where everybody is almost like obsessed with speaking in British humor exclusively. Like every other line is a quip or a
Yep.
pun or a setup,
Yeah.
and it just so works. Like, I want to live in this town.
Oh, I do. I love the whole spirit and energy of the town they live in. It's a movie town. It's a movie setting town. The way that the way this movie is. The cops are pretty much non-existent, except for every time we cut back and they're listing it on the radio. But they're you know inept until they need to be not inept. Uh, you know, the kids are definitely ones in that are the smartest characters in this film. So you're right, it is the kid film, but the energy about it is so much fun, and you can tell that it's not taking itself too seriously. But if you look at BMX Bandits, it's why I have a much more appreciation for many, not all, but many of the family orientated movies that came out during the 80s. Uh, because they were just handled a bit differently. They didn't feel cynical at
Mm.
times. They didn't feel like overly saccharine. They did feel, I mean, they were saccharine, sure, but there's just something genuinely honest about the 80s family movies that it's not just because I grew up with these type of films. It's got a different energy. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, I mean, because it still felt like, I mean, even though these kids, it's a kids movie and they're like clearly teenagers, the kind of the main trio, they almost feel like they should be like 10 years old, just
Yeah,
because of the way
they
that
do.
their friendship is, right? But there's an
Mhm.
innocence to it. But they're just like goofing around and being kids. There's no like, they're not wise beyond their years and cynical, I think, like you said. There is an innocence to it. And it reminded me, like, as happens a lot with movies that we talk about, I wonder who else watched this movie and went on to make other movies, because like I saw there's like an overweight kind of rich bully kid that sort of becomes part of the BMX Bandits gang, but all I could see, especially because the bike was involved, was Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, right?
Yes. Yeah,
At the
yeah.
end, when the bad guys are foiled by, they run into a giant vat of, like, foam fertilizer, I was thinking of the end of Real Genius with the popcorn coming
Yes.
out of the house.
Uh-huh.
Although it's weird because, like, everybody's dancing around in the foam fertilizer, like, the BMX Bandits so happy they won. I'm like, "I don't think you wanna be dancing around those chemicals. Yeah, it looks like soap, but it'll probably melt your skin. What the hell?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's with the films like this, especially the family films, it comes up when you're talking about films like suspension of disbelief, but some films you just gotta let that go and just enjoy the story, the fun
Mhm.
story. And that's what you're getting here because yeah, you're absolutely right. You're like, yeah, you all got to be taking a shower fairly quick. Actually, just go run into that ocean right now and rinse some of that off because that foam fertilizer ain't gonna be good for your complexion.
Oh my god, speaking of ocean, there's a bit where there's like I'd say a good stretch of this movie is these two hoods who are working for the big bad guy. They're trying to catch up with the kids to get, information on where these radios are. They chase Judy like all throughout like this boat and onto a dock. And that's the other thing. Kidman's big break was in Dead Calm. I was like, oh, she has a history of like running into strange men on boats. But she gets out onto the dock and she jumps into this like rowboat, and you think she's gonna get away, and it's so perfectly filmed that you don't notice that the boat is still tethered to the dock until it actually snags on it. I laughed out loud. I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so dumb." Because that's the kind of one of the things I love about this movie is it's not afraid to make fun of the main characters or show that they are, fallible because they are just kids.
Mhm,
They can't just like Kevin McAllister these, you know, dangerous bully, criminals.
mhm.
Everybody kind of gets it. They're smart, but they're not invincible, is what I'm getting at.
Right. Yeah,
They get
no,
into trouble due to their own fault and also circumstances beyond their control. So it makes for a real tension. There's an extended graveyard chase scene that is just it mixes like genuine horror movie elements with kids kind of falling in love. There's that whole thing where Judy and the one guy, I keep getting the two guys mixed up, the bandits,
yeah,
but like
they were pretty much the same guys. I mean,
right, one was
they
blonde
tried
and
to
one was
be
brunette.
separate.
Yeah,
They
right.
tried to be separate, but no, they weren't. Yeah,
But the one guy is like Judy and him are in a grave hiding out from one of the bad guys, and they start talking about their feelings for each other, but the radio's on so the other guy can kind of hear, and then he's like radioing into I can hear you guys, but they continue the conversation. There's not like hurt feelings where another movie would turn this into like a Twilight situation where there's like a rivalry. They're all just kind of like you almost get the feeling they're going to be a thruple at some point.
you do because well, the one even admits that oh yeah, the other guy, I could see why he girls like it, but he doesn't say it like with venom or like oh man, all the girls like him because he's a matter of factly real. He's like yeah, no, you probably like him. I mean, after all, he is probably the better looking one, yeah, and he's the guy that's got the little more talent. This kid's like in reality about his friend, uh, but not in a oh, I resent him sort of way or some hidden resentment. He just is matter of factly with it.
Yeah. It's there's a purity to this movie that just works. We talked about the construction site scene, the chase through the mall. Oh my god, like that's something straight out of Blues Brothers, but they're like driving BMX bikes down the up escalator. And I know they're all stunt kids. I mean, Nicole Kidman was not
Yeah.
doing this with a BMX bike at 16, but I think it's partially because they're wearing helmets, but it's so convincing. Like I don't stop and like I'm not consciously breaking out of watching the movie to think, oh, they just switched to stunt people. I mean, it's all very seamless and very cool to watch.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they got a good stunt double. They had on the trivia facts that apparently they had to get a young boy to put on a blonde wig and do the stunts for Nicole Kidman because they couldn't find any female stunt doubles that looked like Nicole Kidman at her height. And apparently the young boy in between takes was a little embarrassed that he was dressed like Nicole Kidman in a blonde wig.
Well, I was embarrassed for Nicole Kidman for that hair. Like, I don't know what
Oh, that
like
hair, yeah.
bargain bin yarn thing was going on, but she definitely straightened out nicely later on.
And apparently, she learned how to ride the BMX bike for this film, and she was chosen out of 200 actresses. So talk about finding your diamond in the rough, so to speak. Uh, the talent anyway. I mean, they picked her, and you look at where she went from here, but 200, that's a lot.
It is, but I mean, the thing, and we've been talking about this all month, kind of appreciating her in movies. Like, I've loved all of them except for Stoker, I
Stoker.
think.
Yeah, I
But
know.
that wasn't even really her movie, except for like a kind of a key scene or two.
Mhm.
But it just shows the versatility of her as an actress. Because you think, oh, Academy Award nominated or Academy Award winning actress who starred off in this movie called BMX Bandits, you'd expect it to be something where she's kind of slumming it, or like, oh, I'm gonna make it in the big time. I can kind of phone it in. I buy her in this movie, and she's sassy and she's cool, and she is, she's the girl in the group of, guys, but she's not the damsel in distress. She is kind of like
She-
one of the guys, but she maintains her femininity and just
right.
becomes the kind of girl that, like, the girl next door that you could easily fall in love with, but she'd also probably kick you in the teeth.
She'd probably kick you too. Yeah, she has her tomboy ways, but they don't make her like completely tomboy to where they remove her femininity. I thought that was handled really well. I liked the way her character was written. She was just, I mean, these felt like kids. I mean, they just felt like a group of friends, at that age. It's like even the romantic part, it didn't last long and it wasn't really serious. It was rather fleeting, actually. It doesn't really come up too much. Although the scene where she jumps into the grave, actually, apparently she sprained her ankle during that
Oh,
scene. Yeah. But yeah, this film, it keeps moving too. That's what's interesting is this film continues to move forward with its plot or that they're going somewhere. It doesn't really slow down too much. And even when it does, there's stuff happening that's moving things forward. They're always talking about opening a BMX park is their big thing.
yeah. At the end, they of course opened the Manly BMX track. Like the first thing you see in this movie, besides BMX Bandits and that like lovely kind of chrome, side of
Mhm.
the van spray painted like look, the first name you see is David Argue. Like they have just such like crazy weird like 80s actor names all over this. It almost seems like a parody, but no, these are the people. Yeah, like I had some good examples, but yeah, the first few, Brian Best, Michael Gillette, he cuts like a razor. No, I don't know. Just yeah, it's
Angelo D'Angelo.
yes, that was another one,
I
Angelo
love that
D'Angelo.
name.
Oh man. Let's see. Was it racing? Okay, they weren't racing the bikes, but they took their BMX bikes down a damn water slide, man.
I love that. I'm like, this what's wonderful about this extended, like, I would say a quarter of this film is this one chase scene. I mean, they put so much into this chase scene when they start that, yeah, they go from a construction site, they go to a mall where they're going through a mall and down escalators, and then they go down construction ladders, and then yeah, suddenly they find themselves in a water park, and you're like, okay, where are they gonna go from here? Oh, that's where they're gonna slide their bikes down the water slide.
Except for the one bad guy who doesn't have a bike. He's just kind of like stumbling down, and you're like, oh, is he gonna break his neck? Man, poor guy.
Yeah. You get the one kid who pushed the crook down. The crook guy, he didn't want to go down the water slide. The one kid was like, "No, you're going."
Well, these criminals too. I mean, they're kind of these funny doofuses, but they are also, real killers. Like when
Mhm.
the two guys pose as undercover officers and they corner Judy, they get her alone, and she of course turns on the one radio to try and get her friend's attention, but they're like, fixing their gear or something, they don't hear
With
it.
their radio playing, yeah.
Right. That's what it was. But the one guy's like, yeah, we can't afford to leave any bruises. And at the end, when the head honcho bad guy shows up and they're cornered by the 300 BMX bikes, they're like, yeah, get the clubs and the guns. And he opens up the truck. There's like sawed off shotguns. And like, this guy was going to murder like dozens of children.
Well,
They're not
but
messing around.
and that's the way they hid it well, was because just when something dark was about to happen, the kids pull something off. Usually Nicole Kidman's Judy pulls something off to avoid it. Like the guys were going to make it look like she drowned in the boat, and then she kicked the one guy in the nards and just, took off. And then, like you said, yeah, with this one, Judy again saves the kids because they're about to get the shotguns out, and she smashes the trunk down, grabs the keys, and throws them off into the grass. And you can tell, and I love that. I loved that because she just didn't push the trunk down and then they all go running after her, not going, oh, we could just open up the trunk again. She actually manages to grab the keys and throws them. I mean, it's something simple, but at the same time, it adds just a little extra, like, okay, they can't kill them because, and then the guys with the bats, they're just overwhelmed by numbers and they get flour thrown in their face.
Yes.
I'm guessing there's something here I don't understand with the flower thing. Maybe with whatever that is, maybe a common thing or whatever. But I just love how they used flour as their weapon. Which
I mean, I don't know if it's a cultural reference or something, but it just seemed perfect, and it seemed totally logical. Like, they got flour. That's gonna be their weapon of choice.
Well, the flour's cheap, and it is awkward when you get hit with flour. I mean, it's you're like, okay, you know what? I can buy into this. I can buy into this, and
I like that.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I like that our bandits are also obsessed with horror movies. They're constantly describing. They have these crazy, they're fictitious horror movies, but these kids have actually seen them. And at one point, the one guy's describing something to Judy, and she says, "I'm more of a fan of the movies where at the end the hero holds the heroine's hand, and it's still attached to her body."
But then she uses that later on when she gets kidnapped. She's telling them the story of a horror movie, and the one guy driving is getting intrigued. He's like, I think he said something to the fact of, "Oh, I think I'm disgusted, but I also want to know what happens next." She's talking about a bride and her hand getting dismembered or whatnot, and it's just, it's fun. Yeah, it's ridiculous. This is going to be a ridiculous. But at the same time, again, as I mentioned, this is a film. I mean, we've got a story, we got characters, we've got stuff that makes sense. There isn't just the zany antics. Sure, maybe some, not as much suspension, you got to give a little more suspension of disbelief. But overall, I'm like sitting there, I'm like, this movie is far better than I fully expected it to be.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Like, first of all, I was surprised. Have they made a sequel to this, or is it a standalone?
No, it's a standalone, as far as I'm aware.
That's a shame, because I want to spend more time with these characters, and also I told my wife about it. I'm like, I would totally watch this movie with you. It'd be a date night, yeah.
It'd be a date night, sure. It's when she'd probably be able to go, not give you a side eye, like.
It's the most fun I've had watching a movie in quite a while, and it's 40 years old.
It is. It is, and that's exactly what it is. It's fun. It never takes itself too seriously. You've got the jokes in there, which apparently the director was trying to go for the kind of 60s Batman spirit, or the Elan, I guess, British comedies, and that the kind of the slapstick type ones. And I think he accomplished that. He's going for that spirit to where, almost like a Laurel and Hardy type of comedy of sorts. Not quite so ridiculous, but that spirit.
It reminded me of like the Beatles, like Yellow Submarine kind of jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because of the accents were sort of similar, but can you give me a hand? Might be one in the books.
Yeah.
You know what they say? Two's company, three will get us talked about.
Yeah.
Just as like these little zingers that are very adult, and not even adult in a like it's going to go over the kids' heads, but the adults know that we're talking about sex stuff. Just adult like humor, like kind of almost sitcom lines that I think kids and adults can appreciate. Also, in the opening, there's I guess a bank heist where they go in wearing pig masks, and again, I just kept thinking of Point Break. I guess Oink Break.
Break.
Yeah, like someone watched BMX Bandits and said, "Hey, let's put Patrick Swayze in those masks and change him to president."
Yeah, well, the pigs, it was great because the driver has the wolf mask and the guys who bust into the bank have the pig mask. But even here, this bank heist is actually one of the better ran bank heists that I've seen crooks pull off. They take this van where they got the masks, they smash through the front of the bank, they get their money, but they've got another car that drives up that they drive off with. So they don't drive off in the same vehicle that they had, like backing out or whatnot. And then that car stops and hands off the money to a third car. I'm like sitting here going, this is actually a decent heist.
Well, it also shows, not that the kids, the BMX bandits weren't around to see any of this, but it gives the audience a sense of who these 16-year-old kids are up against. Like, they're not just these
Right.
bumbling crooks, they are organized criminals with, plans upon plans upon plans. And when those plans don't run out, they also have a trunk full of guns. So we know the danger, even if it's kind of like a light comedy. They do have these moments, they're punctuated by real, like, darkness. Like, these kids, it's all zany antics and stuff, but they cannot get caught. They can't
No,
afford that.
no, they can't. And it's also interesting with the gangs and stuff. Like I said, with the Nicole Kidman's character Judy, a couple of times, escaping what could have happened. But they sell it in such a way to, like you said, that danger is still there, but even the solution or how they prevent that from happening, it actually makes sense in the film. It's not just some kind of, oh, they're bumbling, oh, they're incompetent or whatnot. There's actions that the kids take just enough for you to believe, okay, they help prevent that. Okay, these guys aren't exactly the most competent. They're silly, kind of the comic relief, but at the same time, they're not overly comic relief. They're just fumbling enough.
But then you've got the nice blend. Like, there's the one guy with the pencil mustache. This is towards the end of the movie where he's getting really frustrated with one of the kids, and I think he's got his switchblade out or something. He's like, I
Mhm.
want to cut someone up, but he's going to get in the car, and the door handle's busted, so he has to, like,
He has
flip
to
his
jump
way
over
into the
into the
sunroof.
sun.
It's just so awkward, and, like, so it goes from, like, a complete dangerous badass to a buffoon in, like, 3 seconds.
I just loved that. He went for it. It's like, ah, damn it! And then he flips into the sunroof. It's like, did not see that coming at all.
No.
and,
And
and
his
then
outfit, what was it? He was wearing, like, red, yellow, and blue, like this bright, it's
yeah,
almost like a comic book superhero outfit, but he was a low-level villain.
he was a low level comic book villain. And yeah, this definitely has comic book feel to it with our characters, the way they are in the situations they're in. But it's really hard to explain. I think a little, well, not too hard, but just the way everything is handled in this film, just the whole thing, the way it's handled is something that uh you could tell they knew they were making something for kids, but they didn't exactly dumb it completely down for kids. I mean, they still, the kids are still the heroes. They still have the one up on the adults. But at the same time, I never felt like it was really dumbed down, if that's the right term, or
No, I mean, it's a smart movie, and that's the thing, is, like, I vaguely remember hearing about this when I was a kid. I think someone I knew had watched it or
Mhm.
something and thought it was cool, but I was like, I don't know if I knew if it was playing anywhere, like on HBO or whatever. It just wasn't on my radar. And again, it was about bikes, and I didn't care. But we always talk about, like, 80s movies, like, oh, things were different back in the 80s. We had, like, weird dark movies, and they're all twisted and stuff. This is like the adult version of the dark twisted movie, but it's, like, kind of fun and optimistic. I wish, like, I messaged you when I was
Yeah,
halfway through this, and I said, "Can all movies just be BMX Bandits, please?" And
right.
I meant it, because, like, I wish I'd had a steady diet of this kind of movie growing up, and makes me wanna look into Australian 80s, kids movies even more, and see what else am I missing out on.
Yeah, it made me want to seek out more of them too, because we do focus on the darker kids stuff, but there was the lighter fare too. But even the lighter fare, like this is a prime example, you know, didn't treat it for lack of a better term, kid gloves as far as material. These kids do get put in danger. These kids do have real problems, but it never gets heavy. It helps avoid. It gets just near the edge, and then it kind of backs off. It's like, okay, and our cops. I love the cops. How they're just hanging in the cop office, listening to the radio chatter. You're like, they're pretty much incidental, really, until the very end.
Well, the one lady who kind of first picks up the radio signal, like at the end, she figures out because she's listening to them, they're talking in kind of code, and like, oh, it's BMX, lingo, and they're like, what? BMX? They're talking about BMX stuff. Like, what do you mean? Bikes? They're talking about bikes.
They're talking about bikes.
Oh.
Yeah, and as we mentioned with the kids, the way they're written, Nicole Kidman's character for a 16-year-old female character in 1980, 83, she's a pretty strong character. She knows how to repair bikes. She knows how, she's not just, like you said, damsel in distress, or, oh, look I'm with both these boys, but who should I pick? Yeah, it's like she never gets that at that point with that trope that you might expect with a movie like this.
Right. I mean, I almost feel like they introduced that, not even a rivalry, but an acknowledgement that some of them might have feelings for each other, just because it is, they're adolescent boys hanging out with this new kind of like a cool chick. So it's got to come up, but they introduced it, had some fun with it, and then left behind to get with the rest of the plot, which I definitely appreciate because it stayed focused on the one thing the movie was about. In the graveyard, I did like the line, being a zombie isn't all bad. You get to stay up all night, but you've got to spend the rest of your life dead.
they have some great dialogue in this film too. They just it's one of those things where you get this blast from the past, but at the same time you're just like, okay, I fully admit it's far better than I expected. I enjoyed it far more than I thought. I thought it was going to be this cheesy 80s. And while it does have that cheese, I'm like, I could see myself watching this again. Like if I come home from like a bad day or something, I just toss in BMX Bandits in the background and check it out, keep it and watching it because it's fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, the only downside is there is a Blu-ray of it, but it's like $40. But I think it's got like a commentary and some extra stuff on it. But it's like, oh.
And this director would go on to direct a slew of films, including B horror. I think he did Leprechaun 3 and 4. So,
really?
Yeah, I was looking at Brian Trenchard Smith. He making movies. He's still making movies. Well, up through 2014, he made movies. But yeah, he did a lot of interesting like B movie type stuff. But yeah, he did Leprechaun 4 in space. He did Leprechaun 3, Night of the Demons 2. He directed.
DC 9/11, Time of Crisis.
So yeah, I mean he had done a number of films before this one. So I mean he's a veteran. He did the Quest for 1986. He directed with Henry Thomas. Definitely another Australian, a resourceful American orphan living in rural Australia finds himself caught up in the magic of a local Aboriginal myth that might be more than anyone knows. In The Quest, yeah, with the star of E.T., Henry Thomas is in The Quest.
We might have to find space for that one, Mark. That sounds.
We might have to find space for that one. But back to here, you can already see the talent that Nicole Kidman had, even at age 16. You just the way she carries herself, the way she delivers and acting in this, you're just like, I mean, I'm watching this going, yeah, I see it. Yeah, you can already just see it there. You just see the talent there already.
It's weird
And
because she had like so much of a baby face that her face was almost like completely round and then splotched with like the rosy red cheeks. I'm like, wow, I mean, this
but
is totally different than than the Nicole Kidman we've been talking about the rest of the month.
and the stunts, they blended the real actors with the stunts very well, because for a few scenes I'm like, wait, did they actually put the kid in danger, that their actor? Because you look at a couple of those scenes, you're just like the one where the kids are going after the truck and they jump on the back of it. I'm like, like, wait, what?
And yeah, they're doing like the Indiana Jones where they're on the very top of it, getting slid around, and some of those it looked like the actors were up there. I mean, I'm sure it was
Yeah,
safe, but
Smave.
it got me thinking, like, what if I were on top of that truck and I had to like try and grab onto the railing? Could I do it? And that's the mark of a great action scene, like where it's a cliche, but you really feel like you're in the middle of it.
Mhm.
But it's more than that. You feel like you're in the middle of it and you hope you can get out of it. Like, I was genuinely getting scared for these kids.
That's what I think is part of the appeal of this film, is that it puts you in the kid's shoes. Somehow the director manages, through the editing and, like you mentioned, the camera work, considering this was shot on film, is impressive to say the least, with some of the bike shots. Um, but the way it's handled and edited and framed and everything, you're with the kids. You're with them. You're not just observing them. You're sitting there with them around their bikes. You're with them on their bikes, riding behind them with them through the mall, through the construction site, jumping on a truck, which I did crawl on top of the truck while it was moving once. So, yeah, my quick story, my buddy and I, we were coming back. It was my birthday party. We were coming back from the pool. He wasn't my stepdad at the time. It was just my mom's boyfriend at the time, but he's driving a covered pickup truck. And there was a bunch of us in the back seat. And my one buddy, Peter, jumps on the opens the back because it wasn't locked. It was just, one of those glass flip up. Now we're on the side roads. We're not on the main roads. Anyway, so he crawls up on it, and I go, "Hey, that looks like a good idea." So I crawl up. So the window, the window door to the back of the cab is open, and we're hanging there. And so then we managed to manipulate our skinny bodies with the arms to close the lid, and then we crawl on top of this hood, top of the truck. Just and my the guy, he saw me in the back rear window, so he was driving a little slower, but he was driving around town, dragging us out. And then suddenly I took my shirt off while on top of the truck, and suddenly went, "Wash your windows," and I wiped the window in front of my mom, and she's like, "Ah!"
And how long were you grounded for, Mark?
I was not grounded. I wasn't grounded. But yeah, I climbed on top of a truck while it was moving. So kids could do that. They're able to.
Gave me a heart attack because I'm imagining like my youngest would try something like that. Oh.
It was so dumb. But at the time, it seemed like a really fun idea. I think back on it now and go, "Wow, that was really dumb." But you're a kid. You don't think that way, right?
Not every kid makes it to adulthood, Mark. You're very lucky.
Yeah, I apparently I am. One other thing I want to mention is we get our 80s montage action while the credits are rolling. And even then, Judy comes out on top because she wins whatever competition is happening at the new Manly BMX track that they have. We see them out there where she wins a trophy, and then I think we even get a freeze frame in here to cap the 80s. We open an 80s movie with a shot of the water and that classic 80s guitar riff, like dur, 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 dur.
Oh yeah.
The minute it does that, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is 80. This is definitely 83.
That's the thing, is like you can think about 80s movies in kind of like a cheesy nostalgia way, but there are some 80s movies that just rock because they're so 80s, and this is one of them. Like I could feel like you could put BMX Bandits on now and just say, to a Zennial or a Zoomer or whatever, "You're gonna watch this movie, you're gonna love it." it's not something to make fun of. It's something to enjoy,
Mhm.
and it's earnest. Now, if they can understand the concept of earnest, that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, it's unapologetic, but it's not cheesy. I
Mhm.
think you could see it as cheesy, but that's kind of missing the point.
No, but it gets just to the edge of cheesy. I mean, even with the dialogue and the quips and everything the way they do, it gets to that edge of, like, real cheese, like real cheesy '80s dialogue. It gets just to the edge, but they never, like, really go over the top with it, and that's why I think it works, is that it has as outrageous as the situation is and how crazy it is, and you gotta look at it going, "Okay, they're taking on these villains, sure." There's just a little hint of groundness to it, a little bit of groundedness to it that, I think is what helps make it appeal and keep it from just going over the going, "Oh my god," just come on, Not getting into those later Police Academy zaniness to where you're just like, "Oh, what am I," like, you know?
Yeah. Oh, God, the Police Academy sequels. I totally forgot about those. Thanks for reminding me, Mark.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I thought you'd bring that flashback back. I mean, hey, it gave Bobcat Goldthwait and them work, so Hightower.
Mission to Moscow.
Oh my
Operation
god,
Miami Beach.
Mission to Moscow. Oh my god, and Operation Miami Beach. Oh man, those films were so formulaic too because they would always end with the big chase. You know, just
It was great in the first couple, but then, yeah. Oh my gosh.
every movie had that.
Do you remember the
Uh,
Police Academy cartoon show they had back in the 80s?
yes, and see, folks, the '80s. You can take a rated R property and turn it into any kids show you want. RoboCop, Police Academy,
Uh,
Toxic
I was
Avenger.
gonna say Toxie and His Amazing Friends or whatever. Yeah. Oh man.
You basically just take, yeah. The Police Academy is the tried and true classic '80s comedy with we have to have nudity in here because it's an '80s comedy, and they made a cartoon for kids out of it, folks.
Oh, I'll have to dig them up somewhere, but I think I've got a pretty much a good run of the Police Academy comics that Marvel made back in the day.
Oh my god, yes, that's right. They did that too. Oh man, it's there are wild time, folks. We aren't exaggerating, and it's not overstating how wild the '80s kind of were.
Where's my BMX Bandits comic book? That's what
Yes,
I want.
where is the BMX Bandits comic book? Come on now, folks. Come on, someone out there make a BMX Bandit comic book. I want to see the continuing adventures of our kids after maybe the BMX track is getting threatened of being closed, and so they have to do something about it by some evil land baron. You know,
Or you do the legacy sequel thing like they did like with Rocky and Clerks and stuff. They make a BMX Bandits, but it's set in Australia after the apocalypse, so it's BMX Bandits Beyond Thunderdome.
oh my god, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think you're onto something there. Yeah. They
BMX Bandits Fury Road.
BMX Bandits Fury Road. It's just like Fury Road, only all bikes. There you go. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're onto something here.
Or on something is more like
Or
it.
on something like that. So yeah, I think yeah, we'll tidy it up here. It's not a deep film. It's just I'm glad we watched this. I was glad I was able to find it because I wanted to try to get one from each decade, and I'm like, okay, I could have tried to find a Kidman film for this year that may have came out, which there isn't. Probably have to go to 2022. But I was so happy when I found this. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got. This was only her second film she was in. I think she was only in one other film before this. But I'm so glad I did because this is so much charm and fun for this film. That yeah, it's cool. It's cool, man. It's You don't
It
have to
is.
be into BMX bikes to enjoy it.
No, you really don't. And even if you're not, like the BMX stuff in here is so cool and fun that it's not just, inside baseball, shop talk. But I have you seen this plot device before where you've got the MacGuffin that the bad guys are after, but it gets spread all throughout the town? Because I love this walkie-talkie plot. I don't quite think I still understand how the frequencies worked, but I just love that they were going around selling these things for like $5, $20, $30 to just like random people. And so what the bad guys were after was suddenly just like spread out all over the town.
Well, no, we haven't seen it too much, and actually, they do mention in here that these are police band radios, but they had to be modified. That's why they needed to get them early because they had to be modified so they wouldn't hear them. The whole purpose was just to listen in on the cop frequency, but this is before they were modified. So the spread around town, yeah. But I've not seen that often in any type of film to where they have to go collect all of these from, and you're thinking about how many they sold. You're like, yeah, they're never going to get them all. You're not going to get them all. No.
Well, it's also kind of like, I guess, a version of this, and I can't believe I'm referencing this movie, but Cocaine Bear. The whole idea where they lose the cocaine in the woods, and so Ray Liotta sends out his goons to try and retrieve it, and the bear's gotten into a bunch of it. He's got to get as much of it back so he can get it to the cartel that he owes it to, but it keeps dissipating because it either gets snorted up or shot up or thrown into a gully or something like that. But yeah, that's the only parallel I can think of.
Yeah, I could. It's very few and far between if you do see it, and I don't think we see it that often. And yeah, it was a cool difference in this type of film that we've seen. Oh yeah, and you're right. Someone mentioned about the face mask thing, the Point Break. BMX Bandits had it, and also there was a film called Restless Natives where they where have masks to where they bank robbers. So I mean, it's kind of a trope. It was one of the earlier tropes that we have here, but yeah, the whole MacGuffin thing about the radios being spread out, I don't see that type of thing where some object that they need has been spread out outside of Cocaine Bear, and it's rare, but it's kind of fun. Yeah.
Oh yeah, very fun.
And they didn't even do a thing like, oh, we're going to tell all the kids you better bring your radios here or we're going to kill these three people. They didn't play that angle, but they could have.
They did a very last minute, very late in the game thing where the head bad guy did try and take Judy hostage, but it didn't last very long. I think that's did she? Yeah, she got away from him somehow. I think that's what started the flower and the fertilizer or something like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, because they were getting the clubs, and then they went to the trunk to get the guns, and they kind of, she was just standing there. They were kind of standing next to her. They didn't quite have a good grip on her, and she managed to get away, slam the trunk, and throw the keys, and then ran. So
that's what it was. Okay.
So that's what happened at the end there a bit. But yeah, folks, seek this out. It's on like Freevee, it's on YouTube, it's on Daily Motion out there. If you're looking for something that has some genuine fun, it's rather pure, like you said, Ian. Earnest is a really good word for it. See this, and yeah, it does scream 80s a bit with some of the fashion that, but it still works.
Totally works, except for her hair. That will never work.
Except for her hair. Her hair. Maybe it was the winds because they're on the coast, but her hair was constantly like, I'm like, oh man, someone give her a brush or something, because it just was always like just frazzled. It just like boom, constantly.
Yeah,
she looked like
scene. Slash. Yeah.
Yeah, no matter the scene. So there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed Kidman in 4D month, and prepare yourself, folks. Next month, we're covering skin flicks. No, not those type of skin flicks. Sorry, Ian. Yeah, I know. Maybe
I'm not coming back. I'll see you in June.
we're covering movies that have the word skin in the title, and there's many of them out there. But I tried to pick a kind of a diverse range of movies, just like I did, I tried, even when I come up with these themes, I want to try to do at least a little bit of variation in the types of films. So Skin Flicks is next month. Yes, May is Skin Flicks, and we'll be watching the very unusual reflective skin, I believe it's called, Skin Game, a Western from 1971. We're going to watch Under the Skin as part of our Perfect 10 series. That's a revisit. That's our first revisit here on the Spoiler Room as we look at Under the Skin. And then we're going to look at the Skin Game again, but Alfred Hitchcock's The Skin Game from 1931.
Ooh.
And then I Eat Your Skin, a B horror film that is I've watched a few times that is definitely interesting. So we have a variety of skin flicks for you to listen to and watch, folks, which I hope you'll look forward to that. And now, as always, I give my guests their license to shill. So Ian, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Mark. I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and also on YouTube at Kicking the Seat. We do weekly movie reviews and roundtables and interviews and all that stuff. And Thursday night, if this goes up before then, if not, then catch it on the replay. But I'll be doing a live, quote unquote, roundtable review of the new Evil Dead Rises. Most of my panel, I think, are going to be out watching the press screening of the new Marvel movie, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I almost said Avengers, but yeah,
God,
I'll be there at least.
It's that time already. April evaporated.
I know, it's crazy. So yeah, you tune in. I might just be talking to myself. I have no idea, but yeah, it'll be fun. So yeah, check it out. Kickseat.com, YouTube, Kickseat, Kicking the Seat, all that good stuff. So, yeah.
I should be able to make it because I have thoughts. I have thoughts on it. So
Look, Mark, I hope you can make it because we just talked about the Evil Dead from 2013.
We did.
Earlier this year.
We did.
So if you can, that'll be a fun conversation.
It depends on how things go. I may be a little late, but I plan on being on there. I may just be a little late. It all depends on how certain work schedules go. But I want to be on there because I have some things to say that I need to get off my chest, and I need to hopefully not have to, hand in my horror fan card as well, because my feelings with this Evil Dead Rise film.
I gotta credit you because you posted something in our Facebook message group, an article that had Lee Cronin, the writer director, talking about some aspects of the film that I have some thoughts, and I think that's going to be sort of the lead in for the Thursday episode. So if you are a little bit late, I will vamp until you can come on. So just let me know if you can make it or not, because it'll be fun.
Right now I should be able to make it. It probably won't be a day of till I know if I'll be on time or late. So, but there you have it, folks. You're getting some inside look.
Yeah,
here
sorry, I didn't mean to take over the show.
No worries. But Skinflix is coming up. Please check it out there. As far as what we got coming up, a spoiler room. We've got we've got on our Patreon, we've got our after hours, which are discussions before the discussion. So if you want to check those out, reasonable price. I got a lot of reviews coming on Special Mark Productions and on our YouTube channel. Check it out there. Also check out the the interviews we have. I've got a number of interviews, and I have another one coming up this week as well, with some indie films that have come out that we're very excited to get a chance to talk to the filmmakers about. One of them was Wisconsin Horror. We interviewed the filmmakers for The Headmistress. We interviewed the filmmaker for behind Hunt Club, and then the folks behind Space Wars, The Quest for Deep Star. And that one was a lot of fun to talk about as well. So fun interviews coming up in there, plus a lot of reviews. So all that fun stuff. Thank you so much. We're going to close it out now by just saying good night, everyone.
Good night.